in just a few more moments. Yes. All right, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We're going to get going with the executive session on numerous Senate bills that came before our committee. Representative
Why do I have
Hicks.
a bowl of candy in front of me?
Oh, I know. Representative Hicks, would you like to lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you, Representative Hicks. Representative McDonald, would you like to call the roll, please?
I'm in for Representative Manjaputi. My name's Representative Tulerski.
Representative Ellen Reed substituting for Representative Al Holland.
Present.
Representative Guthrie? Present. Representative Gonzalez?
Here.
Representative Keller?
Present.
Representative Kelly? Here. Representative Elwood?
Present.
Representative Brown?
Here.
Representative Cahill?
Here.
Representative Davis?
Here.
Representative Tatro?
Here.
Representative Chair Levin? Thank you. Representative Gilman?
Here.
Representative Majority?
Here.
Representative Tulerski?
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. Representative Gallagher?
Here.
Representative Hicks?
Here.
Representative Reed?
Here.
Representative Priest?
Here.
And Chairman Turcott.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Clark. We'll go ahead and get started. Open up the executive session on Senate Bill 88 relative to annual dues paid by towns and cities to Town Officers Association. And we have a motion by Representative Yokella.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move ITL.
Thank you, Representative. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Representative Elward. Representative Yokella, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sure. I am happy to speak. I am not. So in this section, this states that this is supposed to be for the education of public officials. And I think that we haven't, I think, heard from the associations that they are unable to train these people with the funds that they are collecting, and that this is the only way that they can achieve that. Because I think that there's other ways of achieving, like, people attending. They could require some nominal fee for people to go to the trainings and be able to fund those trainings that way. I don't necessarily know that they need to increase the amount of funds going through on memberships to discharge their duty of educating these public officials. There's also the concern that in the statute, there is a requirement that each of the towns pay these dues to these associations, and that increasing the amount of not just one association, but all of these associations for the potential up to $50 is actually over doubling the state mandate that be expended on these associations. And, you know, as it seems to me to be an increase of an unfunded mandate from the state to the order of maybe $100 or $150 a town, and not necessarily sure that all of that money, 100% of that money, is going to the education, and not other avenues. So for those reasons, I support the ITL motion.
Representative Stavis.
Would just like to note, with respect to this bill, that we have had similar bills that have similar amounts of increases for similar activities, and we have passed those.
Further comments or questions? Representative Gallagher?
One thing, so this one, the hearing, we didn't really get a chance to hear from the prime sponsor much about, and that would have been useful. I mean, I think some of the point Representative Yokela raised about not having heard from certain people is a decent one, but that to me would signal more to me that we ought to retain it rather than ITL it. I don't necessarily have any opposition to the bill on principle. I just wish we could have gotten some more information about it.
Further comments or questions? Representative Trelevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After reading the bill and giving it some thought, and listening to Representative Yokela and Representative Gallagher, what comes to my mind is the inflation that all of us are facing and the prices of everything going up, and raising the amount available to have someone join an organization and then benefit from the information the organization can provide seems to me to be totally worth it in 2023 terms. So I would support an ought to pass of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the $20 cap was established in 1977, and to my knowledge, there has not been a bill to raise it, and that's quite a long time. So I would support this increase from 20 to 50 if it was optional, but clearly on line 4 of the bill statute, it's an unfunded state mandate, and I'm unwilling to increase an unfunded state mandate. So I'm going to vote ITL for those reasons.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Gallagher.
So also looking at our notes, I note that we have an amendment here from Representative Yokela. So I would like to know why we were going straight to ITL before discussing the amendment.
Representative Yokela, would you like to answer that question?
I am not sure that I think that I would support the bill as amended, but I'm not confident that such an amendment would be able to pass, and so I wouldn't vote for it without an amendment, and so that's why I chose to go with ITL first. But if the ITL failed, I'd be happy to put forward the amendment.
Representative Stavis.
Question of the chair. A concern over whether an amendment will pass or not is adequate justification for not bringing forth the amendment?
The maker of the amendment chose not to put it forward. If, as he said, if this ITL fails, he could certainly bring forth that amendment.
But so as I said, I mean, as the maker of the motion, it's my choice to make the motion that I choose to make, right? That I don't have to make any specific motion just because I prepared this. I talked to people, and I'm not sure just for the expediency of time, that it would pass. And so therefore I just skip right to where I thought the eventual, the bill was going to eventually go in
Thank
the, in expedience of time. So,
Thank you, Representative Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am too going to vote against ITLing this bill. The three individuals of the town that this is targeting, they provide very valuable services to their residents and businesses. And I think raising their membership from 25 to 50 it's a no-brainer. I mean, especially if it's been the 25 was established in 1977, as reported by the deputy. So I don't think this is an issue. We need to keep them up to speed on the current laws and regulations and mechanisms that can make their jobs easier in these very challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Guthrie.
Thank you very much. I feel pretty much the same way. The only thing we're doing is changing the amount of the dues. So that the concerns that have been voiced are not going to be really in the bill. The bill is only changing the amount of money. We're already committed to do any of the other things that are already in the law. So I can't ITL it. I would have to vote ought to pass if a motion is made. Besides, the bill is submitted by my senator.
Thank you, Representative Guthrie. Any further comments or questions? Microphone, Representative Guthrie. Thank you. Seeing no more, I'm just going to make a quick comment on it and reiterate what Representative Yokella and Representative Power talked about. Originally, I thought this was a very simplistic bill, just it's money, but it goes beyond money, and it goes to the issue of where that money goes, and it is a mandate. Line 4, where it talks about it says each town and city shall pay annually. It doesn't give them the option, it says shall. Over on 6, it also says such amount shall be due annual membership. So I think that sometimes it's not just about the dollar value. Yes, there has been inflation, but in this it's as much or more about, I don't want to, if it's process or whatever you want to call it, but so I would agree at this point on the ITEL motion. Further comments, questions, clerk? Would you, Representative Chalevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for your comments. I understand that mandates can be overbearing, sometimes one-sided, sometimes unclear. I think that mandating that town officials have the education that they can receive from local organizations that can provide it is worth a mandate, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll, please.
Okay, this is SB 88, and the motion is ITL. Vice Chairman Power.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes no. Representative Lascelles.
Yes.
Representative Keller.
Yes.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Elwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Tetro.
No.
Representative Trelevin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Telesky.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Hicks.
No.
Representative Reed.
No.
Representative Priest.
No.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the ITL fails 7 yeses and 13 noes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Representative Yokela, would you like to propose an amendment?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to propose amendment 2023-1711H. And I'm happy to speak to the amendment.
Do we have a second? Representative Trelevan seconds. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So in this statute, as I read it, it says that this is to ensure that there is education of public officials in tax problems and other matters pertaining to the proper and efficient discharge of their duties. And maybe there is a reason to increase the annual membership, whether that to increase the amount of education that goes to the these town officials. We didn't hear that, but maybe that is what is necessary. But under the way that the law is currently, this money can be diverted away from that education into other parts, specifically it can be transferred into accounts that are regulated by RSA 15.5 Roman 2, which is accounts that fund lobbying and not education. And so all this is trying to do is to say, yes, if you want to increase, you want to have this money for dues, it needs to go towards your operations of your association, or for actual training, not go towards lobbying. If you want to do that, it should be additional money on top of the dues or whatever. We're not requiring that these local state agencies, these are the only ones I believe that are required, that these local municipalities are required to fund. The ones like NHMA and stuff like that are optional, but these are required. And so these need to be for their stated purpose, for the operations and for the education of these town officials, and nothing more, or nothing that would be considered lobbying. I think that's outside of that we should be mandating the towns to do, or to fund. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Comments, Representative Priest?
Yes, will the speaker, the last speaker and the sponsor of this bill, answer a question that I have?
He may answer it. Why don't you state your question, and we'll see if he wants to answer.
The question is, he alluded to the fact that there was all this information out there that towns are using their membership monies for lobbying. And I haven't seen that. And so I'm just curious where this is coming from and where the information is. Thank you.
Do you wish to respond?
Thank you. I'm happy to comment and say that this is, if as you surmise that none of their membership dues were being used for lobbying, then this would have no effect, right? This would only have effect if they were trying to transfer some of their membership dues away from their operating expenses and their actual duty, which is to train these town officials, and moving that money into lobbying efforts. And so I'm just trying to create a wall there and say, if the state has come in and say, you have to be a member of this organization and you have to get trained, because it's important that you get trained so that we have equitable taxation and all of this stuff, that if the state is doing that mandate, then we make sure the money goes where it's supposed to go, which is education, and it's specifically stated in the bill. So, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Majori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm opposed to the amendment on the grounds that I've heard, because I think that if there are organizations that also do lobby, not gonna argue that point, but if they do lobby, but also provide training, NHMA, for instance, that name has come up, provides all kinds of different training where maybe now that these organizations can't participate in that or can't benefit from it. I just wonder if that kind of confusion may arise by adding this language, and for that reason, I would be opposed. But tell me that I'm wrong, and that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative, we had Representative Guthrie next, actually, and then Representative.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that, as I've said, I think before, that lobbying is not a dirty word.
No.
And it is in fact sometimes education. So I would not support the amendment because I don't have any concern about that area.
Representative Reed.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, although I'm a substitute. So, not that I don't trust my colleague, Representative Yokella, but I did look up the RSA to which the amendment refers, and I'll just read it very directly. So, it's a prohibition on state funds, or would be, in this case would be the town funds, to lobby or attempt to influence legislation, participate in political activity, or contribute funds to any entity engaged in these activities. As a person who has basically cut my political teeth on campaign finance reform, I think it's extremely important that we make sure taxpayer funds don't go to lobbying. Lobbying itself is not a dirty word because it can be education, but paid lobbying is quite different. And to use taxpayer funds to lobby for a legislative outcome when those taxpayers didn't have a say in that is quite problematic to me on a number of levels. So for that reason, I will be supporting the amendment.
Further comments? We represent, did you have another? Oh, Representative Yokella.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of comment on Representative Maggiori's concerns about, so this would not affect NHMA in any way. So this is only for these specific associations that are mandated that we join in the state, right? This wouldn't, NHMA can put 100% of their municipal, dues to lobbying if they so choose. This statute is for making sure that our town officers are trained and educated, and that is what these dues are supposed to facilitate, and that is the whole section of this statute. If they wanted to do additional things over and beyond that, I think that should be optional for those townspeople to be able to pay for that or not, right? That this is a state mandate of what we are saying is the bare minimum that those towns do. And so since this is a mandate from the state saying you have to do this, you have to join this, that I think gets a little bit different than just saying like, no, we're not going to allow it. I think that, they could raise money in other ways by just asking or saying like, hey, we're going to, charge for like municipal accounting. We pay dues to NHMA at my local town, but then when we go to trainings, we actually have to pay sometimes additional money to go to that training, right? And so there's no reason that these other organizations couldn't do that and raise the money from that, and that could get diverted into lobbying. All of that is possible, right? It's not forbidding any of that. I'm just saying that, the bare minimum that the state has said is a mandate. We should not divert that money into lobbying efforts. That's the only concern kind of thing. Hope that clarifies kind of the intent. Thank you.
Did I see Representative Elward's hand up? No? Okay, Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So relative to this amendment, I would like to point out that the statute in front of us, 31-8, relative to the Town Officers Association, it's very clear that this is mandatory because it says shall. Whereas with regard to dues paid to organizations such as the New Hampshire Municipal Association and the New Hampshire School Board Association, those associations, those relationships and in the paying of the dues to those ladder organizations is optional. There are towns that choose not to pay those dues and therefore not to have an association with those organizations. So I just want to point that out.
Representative Gallagher.
So as to whether this is mandatory or not, so yes, it does say shall pay, but it also says the amount paid shall not exceed. So that to me seems to imply that it can be any amount less than that, as long as they pay something. Like they could theoretically just pay 1 cent or something, and because I would be paying something, and it would be an amount that would not exceed either of those. So I don't. Or they could just, if they're already paying 20, they could just keep paying 20, and yeah, I would see that as keeping in with it. So yeah, I don't see them as, I don't see this as mandating $50. I see it as yeah, shall not exceed $50.
Further comments or questions? Representative Davis.
I guess this may be a devil's advocate question or comment, but if this is perceived to be an unfunded mandate, wouldn't it be an unfunded mandate at any level at all? Not to exceed 5 cents? Then why are we arguing about the edges?
Further comments, questions? Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question that I had, and I did not, I don't recall because I didn't note it in my notes from the hearing, is if anybody could inform me as to how the dues or the fees get set. Is it true that each organization sets the fee and then in turn the municipality pays it? Or is it a donation up to $20 or $50?
Representative Cahill.
Thank you for letting me speak. Well, I can't speak to how the legislative body was thinking in 1977 when they put this in, but what I can say is I think it would cost the taxpayers a lot more money to have to pay for programs to teach these clerks and teach these people. So I think they're getting beneficial information, and if we had to run that program, it would cost us a lot more. I think this is an affordable program, and that could be why only certain groups were mandated to be a part of it, because tax laws change and they need to be educated on tax laws, right? We can't just assume they're going to know that information. And I see this as a way that we can keep in line with what we were doing, and it would cost the taxpayers a lot more to do it a different way.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Reed.
Thank you. And just to be clear, we're discussing the amendment currently, which, so not the merits of the underlying bill,
That is
whether the
correct.
limit is or what's mandated and what's not mandated. So to bring it back to the underlying bill, I wanted to add one thing to my previous comment, which is whilst campaign finance reform is technically different than lobbying reform, the intent is largely the same, which is to make sure that we have a government that functions and represents the people. And I just wanted to add that on the federal level, again, this is campaign and not lobbying reform, but on the federal level, it is so extreme that if you're a federal employee or many federal employees, you receive money as part of your job as a federal employee from the government. By the Hatch Act, you are not allowed to even have a campaign sign in your own yard. So again, speaking to the actual amendment before us, I think that the merits of it to separate the taxpayer funds from lobbying is important.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments, I will say I never expected such an extended debate over a one number change in a bill. I've also been requested to take a 2-minute recess by this 3-minute recess by the senior member of the minority party. So we will just, everybody remain seated. We'll be right back. 3-minute recess. Okay, everybody, take your seats. We're going to keep pressing on.
I want a prize.
Okay, everybody back? Mr. Clerk, seeing no more comments on that amendment, could we call the roll on the amendment, please?
Okay, this is SB 88, and the amendment number is 2023-1711H. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. No. Clerk votes no. Representative LaSalle's.
Yes.
Representative Keller.
Yes.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Howard.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
No.
Representative Stavis.
No.
Representative Tatro.
No.
Representative Trelevin.
Yes.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Chelisky.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
Yes.
Representative Hicks.
Yes.
Representative Priest. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Representative Reed.
Yes.
Okay, Representative Priest.
No.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion passes 11 to 9.
Representative Yokella, would you like to make a motion?
Ought to pass as amended?
Thank you. Second?
So seconded.
Representative Reed seconds it. Further discussion? Representative Priest? Thank you. Seeing none? Will the clerk call the roll?
Just a minute, Mr. Chairman. Ought to pass as amendment. Vice Chairman Powell.
Mr. Clerk, you just turned off your microphone.
Thank you, sir. Okay, SB 88 ought to pass as amended, 2023-1711H. Vice Chairman Power.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative Salas.
Yes.
Representative Keller.
Yes.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Elwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
Yes.
Representative Stavis.
Yes.
Representative Tatro.
Yes.
Representative Trelevin.
Yes.
Representative Gilman.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Chelisky.
Yes.
Representative Gallagher.
Yes.
Representative Hicks.
Yes.
Representative Reed.
Yes.
Representative Priest.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion passes 20 to 0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any opposition to this going on the consent calendar? Seeing none, consent calendar it will be. Representative Yokella, you going to write a brief, or we'll discuss it afterwards? How's that? All right. That closes the exec session on Senate Bill 88, and we will open up the executive session on SB 111 relative to the town council manager form of local government. Representative Power, do you have a motion?
Um,
Would you like to introduce an
yes.
amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer the committee Amendment 2023-1631H.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that? Representative Stavis, seconds. Representative Power, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you recall, during the hearing on this bill, it was noted that the language, the grammar needed to be fixed to further clarify the bill. And in going about that, a number of other issues were identified with the bill itself and the grammar fixes that were being made. So the problem, well, we understand and we know that under 49B, a town may adopt a charter that provides for an optional form of legislative body. And in 1991, when RSA 49D was adopted, there were, at that time, only 3 optional forms of a legislative body under D3. That was the town council, the budgetary town meeting, and the representative town meeting, as noted by Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3. And then sometimes later, 2 additional optional forms of legislative body were added, and that's 1A and 2A. And the problem is that they were not properly referenced back in D:2. And so Senate Bill 111, the whole purpose of it was to clarify these sorts of things. So to speak to the amendment itself, if you look at lines 7 and 8, those words in bold, they're there to make clear that a town may adopt a charter with one of the 5 optional forms of legislative body that is enumerated under 49D:3. The remainder of lines 8 and then 9 and 10, that is the whole intent of the bill, is to make clear that towns that adopt a charter under D:3 Roman numeral 1, which is the town council form of optional form of legislative body, that they shall have the same powers and authorities as a city council. And that was the whole purpose of the bill. So that's why that's there. Then you also see changes to the last sentence, which is in lines 10 and 11. As you can see, this form is struck, and it had to be struck, and part of the problem with the original bill is that with the addition of the amended words, it just didn't make sense. So what that last change in lines 10 and 11 does is it makes it clear that this form refers to a budgetary town meeting under Roman numeral 2. And then the rest of the text is the same. So I hope that I made that clear.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none? We'd ask the clerk to call a roll on the amendment.
There we go. Sorry again. SB 111, adopt the amendment 1631H. Vice Chairman Power.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative Salas.
He stepped out.
Oh, okay. Representative Yokella.
No.
I'm sorry. One more time. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No.
No. Okay. Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Elwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
Yes.
Representative Stavis.
Yes.
Representative Tatro,
Yes.
Representative Trey Levin. Yeah. Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Telesky,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Hicks,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Priest,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion passes 18-1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And do we have a motion, Representative Power, on ought to pass as amended?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion on Senate Bill 111 ought to pass as amended.
And seconded by Representative Stavis. Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
SB 111 ought to pass as amended. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Okay. No. Representative Keller,
No.
Representative Kelly,
Yes.
Representative Elwood,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Cahill,
Yes.
Representative Stavis,
Yes.
Representative Tatro,
Yes.
Representative Trey Levin,
Yeah.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Telesky,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Hicks,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Priest,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
OTP as amended passes 18-1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any opposition to the consent calendar? Seeing none, Representative Power, committee report. Thank you. We'll close the executive session on SB 111. And we'll go ahead and open up the executive session on Senate Bill 110 relative to, 110 relative to residency status. And on that, I will recognize myself for an amendment to SB 110. And that will be Amendment 2023-1585H. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brown seconds it. Just speaking briefly to it, the original bill itself, quite honestly, had a lot of issues, in my opinion, on it. What I've tried to do in the amendment is, if you look at I took item 2 now is basically what was item Roman numeral 5 before, and have placed that in as basically a recommendation. When temporary assistance is provided to residents of the municipalities, they may coordinate assistant options to include reimbursement from that person's municipality of origin, and that was an addition made in the original bill. The other issue, I'm just speaking to the amendment for now, so that's all I'll say on that. Are there further comments, questions on that? Representative Saban?
Yeah, I just have questions on Roman numerals 2, 3, and 4 of the bill, the underlying bill. And I'm assuming the amendment does not change those.
It eliminates those.
It eliminates
Yes.
those.
Yep. Further comments or questions? Representative Priest?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the question to the sponsor of the amendment. Could you kind of give us your ideas why you're proposing this amendment and the purpose of it?
The purpose of the amendment is to eliminate what I consider poorly constructed, poorly written other pieces of the original bill. I know I'm speaking to the amendment, but items 2, 3, and 4. There was a lot of discussion on those when we held the hearing. Issues about residency, impacts on voting, 30 days residency status put in here, consecutive 30 days here or there. It was not, in my opinion, just poorly written. And quite honestly, my intent was to recommend an ITL on the entire bill, but in I guess the word would be showing some goodwill to the sponsors. I went and used item 5, Roman numeral 5, which now becomes item 2, Roman numeral 2. So that's basically the gist of it. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
SB 110, adopt amendment 2023-1585H. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative Salas,
Yes.
Representative Keller,
Yes.
Representative Kelly,
Yes.
Representative Elwood,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Cahill,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
No.
Representative Tatro,
No.
Representative Tree-Levin,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Telesky,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Hicks,
Nope.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Priest,
No.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
10 to 10, the motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there a further motion, Representative Davis?
I make a motion about to pass.
Is that motion second?
Second.
Representative Majority seconds. Discussion? Seeing none? Once the clerk is ready, we will call the roll on that.
Okay, OTP on SB 110. Vice Chairman Power,
No.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes no. Representative Salas,
No.
Representative Keller,
No.
Representative Kelly,
No.
Representative Elwood,
No.
Representative Brown,
No.
Representative Cahill,
No.
Representative Davis,
Yes.
Representative Tatro,
Yes.
Representative Tree-Levin,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative I lost my name. Telesky,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Hicks,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Priest,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
No.
10-10.
Okay, so that motion fails. Representative Power, do you have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion of retain on Senate Bill 110.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brown seconds the motion. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My feeling is that there was amendment, that was introduced, and the language in the bill as written is very confusing and problematic. And I feel that this bill could benefit from further work. And so therefore I would like to see it retained.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk when he's ready to call the roll.
SB 110, the motion is to retain. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative Salas,
Yes.
Representative Keller,
No.
Representative Kelly,
Yes.
Representative Elwood,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Cahill,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
No.
Representative Tatro,
No.
Representative Trey Levin,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majority,
No.
Representative Telesky,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Hicks,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Priest,
No.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion fails 11 to 9.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. So this bill will go to the floor without recommendation.
I'll do it.
Okay. Representative Majority.
I'll do both if you'd like.
I'm still not 100% here.
After seeing all those cathedrals with my name on them?
Yeah. Minority opinion. Who would like? Representative Power, maybe? No? Okay. We'll figure out who the minority report will be. And with that, we'll close the executive session on SB 110. Okay, next up, Senate Bill 222, relative to the definition of broadband infrastructures as a revenue-producing facility eligible for municipal revenue bonds. Open the executive session on that. And I would like to introduce amendment number 2023-1709H. Do we have a second?
I'd like to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brown seconds that amendment. And I'll speak briefly to it. This was one, I apologize, I know it came to everybody late last night. I tried to get it to you as soon as I could yesterday afternoon. OLS didn't finish it till then. And I want to explain exactly why I wanted this amendment. If you look on line 9, the bold, and the state shall not be financially liable for a default of such bonds. The reason I added that in is when reviewing the Senate hearing, one of the sponsors himself actually had concerns about the default and the liability under this adding the communications district. And what I wanted to do was, call it what you want, lay down a marker that this committee for future legislators actually understood that there was always the potential for a default of such bonds. The odds of that happening are probably slim. The difference here is in the past, these bonds have been for regional water districts and municipalities. We are now adding in very high technical broadband where the technology can change extremely rapidly. During the testimony on this bill, I asked and again, this was the same concerns the senator had. I asked, how long did he think broadband with wires is not going to be, or when will it be superseded by either wireless or satellite? And the answer was, well, probably around 3 to 5 years. We had a bill last year in finance that expended over $40 million to hardwire the North Country. And when you averaged it out, it was to the tune of almost $20,000 per household that they were going to wire up, which is a ridiculous amount of money for technology that could be changing in an instant. Satellite exists now, and in 3 years, who knows what they'll be doing with satellite and/or again wireless itself. So again, I wanted to put a marker down that this committee was actually considering the possibility of a default. I know in the previous sentence, existing language, it talks about the pledge of faith and credit. That's different than a default of the bonds. So that's my reasoning behind the added language. Thank you. Comments and questions, Representative Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate that you wanted to, as your words, lay that marker down because it provides the kind of fiscal protection that I think is important, financial protection that's important. But the question is, was the language vetted by bond counsel so that we have the assurances that this doesn't trigger something that they can't, that the towns cannot, or that, wow. So that this doesn't trigger something that cannot be met. Oh, on my watch. Again, on my watch.
And in answering your question briefly, the answer is no, I did not.
Thank you.
Representative Brown?
Mr. Chairman, I did speak with the New Hampshire Municipal Association before the session, and they did indicate to me that it would not cause a problem for the bond, a change in the procedure, but not a problem for the bonding.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Are there further comments or questions? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This whole process has been going on for about the past 6 years or so, where we're trying to get some help so folks can get internet up at their residence up in the North Country. And this is another, not going to use the word tool, but something that's going to allow these businesses and citizens of the North Country to get some internet connections. It's going to allow them to, as a group, borrow money as bonds. I've been on this committee since I started back in 2018, and I've never seen this particular wordage stuck into an amendment where it's directed particularly at water and the internet. As far as the internet changing, yeah, it does change. It's probably going to change a lot, and it's probably going to be a couple years before this service gets going. But it's not up to us to decide that, no, we're not going to give these people the opportunity to get some funding to get the internet. It's up to them to decide how they want to proceed once they get the money. And I'd ask you folks not to support the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the same concerns. I know we've talked about the lifespan of broadband hardwired out into the remote communities. And within my own town, which is fairly compact, we still have broadband lines. We also have wireless, and we have satellite communications, but we also even with all the antenna that have been attached to buildings and erected, we still have empty spots where people cannot communicate, including my fire department. So I don't want to count on the improvements to those other technologies. I think there needs to be a solid connection to the World Wide Web. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind that we are speaking actually to the amendment here, not to the actual bill itself. The bill itself, yep. Thank you. Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to point out that the wording of the amendment may in fact contravene existing law, where in RSA 33, it says the governor and council, meaning the executive council, may award an unconditional state guarantee of the principal of and interest on bonds issued under RSA 33. If we adopt this amendment, that effectively prevents the governor and council from doing what's written in law currently.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call. Oh, Representative Priest.
Yes, I will be voting against this amendment also. Broadband is crucial for our community, especially in the rural portions of the state, but also those pockets in our existing communities that
Representative Priest, are we talking about
we're
the
talking about the
amendment?
amendment. And anything that is added to the bill that might jeopardize municipalities from doing this, then I would be opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Mr. Clerk, we'll ask you to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, SB 222, adopt amendment 2023-1709. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes no. Representative LaSalle,
Yes.
Representative Yokella,
Yes.
Representative Kelly,
Yes.
Representative Elwood,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Cahill,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
No.
Representative Tatro,
No.
Representative Chair Levin,
No.
Representative Gilman,
No.
Representative Majori,
No.
Representative Telesky,
No.
Representative Gallagher,
No.
Representative Hicks,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Priest,
No.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion fails 9-11.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do we have another motion? Representative Davis.
I move ought to pass.
And do we have a second, Representative Priest? Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel that the underlying bill is a good bill and one that is long overdue. I know people in parts of the state who are unable to access broadband in any way, shape, or form. While it is true that the technology changes quickly, other forms of technology are also changing quickly. So I don't think that that's an issue. I think people are getting used to things changing quickly. And the germane issue here is that municipalities need to have the authority and the ability under our laws to bond this process.
Representative LaSalle?
Yes, a question of Representative Davis. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that everyone has access to satellite internet communications. Is that correct?
It is partially correct. It's actually not correct. I have relatives who live in the town of Freedom, New Hampshire, which is up there and on the border with Maine. They can't get access to Starlink, which is the Tesla satellite system. There's no broadband access there. It's a desert. It's an internet desert. And they have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and not just in Freedom, but in the entire lake area there. They've been waiting for years for the state to help them get access to the internet, which has now become a public utility. You can't live without it, really, and without success. So Starlink not available, regular internet not available, a communications wasteland.
Thank you, Representative. You expanded my field of knowledge there, because I was under the understanding that if you could look up into the sky,
you could get some sort of satellite communication. But you've corrected me on that.
Representative Elwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm a little confused. What is Starlink?
What? No, it's not.
No?
Not, no.
I-
Representative Reed.
What is?
So aside from the information that the ranking member provided about potential gaps in satellites like Starlink that are provided, I can tell you, and I'm sure maybe this is not the common experience of many of the members of this committee, but as a renter, someone who rents somebody else's property or somebody in an apartment building, you cannot put up a satellite dish. Very frequently, almost never can put up a satellite dish. So no, you do not have access to satellite.
Representative Brown?
Mr. Chairman, just for the committee, I do live in the wasteland, and we do have access to satellite communication in that area in Carroll County, because that's what I initially had at my home. But I do now have regular internet, and I do support the bill overall, so.
Representative Elwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have satellite internet and television, and I don't have any problems with that, so I support the bill.
Further comments or questions? Representative Cahill?
I would like to ask a question of Representative Davies. Could you tell us that RSA that you quoted a little while ago, the 35, whatever it was? I just wasn't fast enough.
Oh, dear.
Why don't, was that the previous bill?
33, RSA 33.
Oh, is it this bill?
This one, yeah.
Okay.
Just the one we're amending.
It's
Okay.
long.
Further questions or comments, comments? Seeing none, I'm going to make one. One of the issues I found, we continually hear about the housing crisis and the cost of housing that continually goes up and up and up. It was interesting to hear a comment made by someone giving testimony last week that by getting broadband to everybody's houses, that actually raises the prices of real estate, which is kind of contrary to the housing crisis problem that we're trying to solve. But anyway, we ask that the clerk call a roll, please.
Okay, SB 222, OTP. Vice Chairman Power.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative LaSalle's.
Yes.
Representative Yokella.
No.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Elwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
Yes.
Representative Stavis.
Yes.
Representative Tatro.
Yes.
Representative Shea-Levin.
Yes.
Representative Gilman.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Telesky.
Yes.
Representative Gallagher.
Yes.
Representative Hicks.
Yes.
Representative Reed.
Yes.
Representative Priest.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
No.
Motion passes 18-2.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any opposition to the consent calendar? Seeing none, committee report. All right, Representative Stavis will be doing the committee report on that.
Mr. Chairman, can we just take a break? So I can
Yes.
get regrouped?
We are going to take 15-minute break. The clerk needs to gather some more paperwork. We've had a lot of roll calls, so we got 15 minutes. Everybody be back at 10 after, please. Okay, I think everybody's back.
I'm waiting for that.
All right, so we're going to open up the next executive session. Where'd Representative Brown go? Guess. Yeah, see that.
Okay, I move, wait a minute, what?
All right, we'll open up the executive session on Senate Bill 78 relative to subdivision regulations on the completion of improvements. I understand there is an amendment to be introduced, and I recognize Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to offer the committee amendment 2023-1627H.
Thank you. Is there a second on that? Representative Stavis. Representative Power, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this amendment reflects the input that that Representative Infantine heard during the hearing. So just to highlight what the amendment does is that on page 2, there's a sentence that was removed because the original bill, the language was somewhat convoluted. So it clarifies things and eliminates may not require and states it positively and straightforward. And secondly, there was another sentence that was completely removed. And that's the sentence that had the word onerous in it. And I had commented that that was very vague and subjective. And additionally, as you can see throughout, the number of days has been increased in a few lines to give more time to react to the business and that's required within that line of statute. For example, going from 20 to 30 business days on line 9 on page 2, and the change was made similarly in lines 12 and 16, again, to give more time. This bill is important, and it reflects a lot of collaboration with the stakeholders and working also closely with NHMA. So I would hope that people would support the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Gallagher.
So I believe, so it looks like we have 2 separate amendments here. So just to clarify about the one we're on, 1627H, so that's meant to supersede the other one, 1429H, I take it, and basically be an improvement over that. Is that correct?
To be clear, we never adopted that first one.
Okay.
The only thing that we've heard is the actual bill itself. So Rep. Infantine did bring that one and gave it to us, but we never acted on it. So this one here would be the first amendment that we actually act on. Representative Priest?
Mr. Chairman, I will also be supporting this amendment because I think it does offer some clarification of the questions that we had and we heard at our last public hearing. And with that, I would be fully in support of Bill SB 78. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk. Sorry about that. You have to reach out a little further. I can't see you down. Representative Tatro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question about the reasoning for this change, and the only thing I could
see is it's to help out the contractors, but yet it takes away any assurances to a municipality for retaining any money for improvements that, or work that hadn't been done in the proper methods, like when they're building the roads and so forth. I've seen them come through and put blocks underneath the sewer lines and then just backfill. And then a couple of years down the road, the town's liable for it. Why it's the bill seems to be protecting the contractors rather than protecting the municipalities. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
I'm not sure what your assumption is. I think you'd have to decide that one on yourself. I don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
Further points, comments? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
SB 78, adopt amendment 2023-1627H. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative LaSalle,
Yes.
Representative Yokella,
Yes.
Representative Kelly,
Yes.
Representative Elwood,
Yes.
Representative Brown,
Yes.
Representative Cahill,
Yes.
Representative Davis,
Yes.
Representative Tetro,
No.
Representative Trey Levin,
Yes.
Representative Gilman,
Yes.
Representative Majori,
Yes.
Representative Tereski,
Yes.
Representative Gallagher,
Yes.
Representative Hicks,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Priest,
Yes.
and Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion passes 19-1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any opposition to the consent calendar?
That was the amendment.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm ahead of myself. Further motions, Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move ought to pass as amended on Senate Bill 78.
Is there a second? Representative LaSalle, sorry. Representative LaSalle.
I'll second that.
Roger, we got you. Further comments? I guess the amendment itself is the bill, so Representative Power.
I'd just like to make one comment that, again, this is an important bill and that substantial time and effort has been expended on this bill. Like I said, with the stakeholders, and it's a reasonable, I guess, compromise, if you will. And the end result is that it will make it more efficient or provide the ability for home builders to provide housing for the citizens of New Hampshire. So I would hope that the committee would support ought to pass as amended.
Thank you for the comments. Representative Priest.
Yes, I will be supporting SB 782. Having served as a planner both in the public and private sectors, I know the games that are played by some people regarding development applications, and this kind of results into thousands of dollars of penalties. And I think this really kind of clarifies who does what time, and where, and what's expected. And it kind of levels the playing field, and I think that's important if we move on and try to address our housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
SB 78, OTPA. Vice Chairman Power,
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative LaSalle's.
Yes.
Representative Yokella.
Yes.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Allwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill. Representative Davis.
Yes.
Representative Tetro.
No.
Representative Tree 11. Representative Gelman.
Yes.
Representative Majori.
Yes.
Representative Tevsky.
Yes.
Representative Gallagher.
Yes.
Representative Hicks.
Yes.
Representative Reed.
Yes.
Representative Preach.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Motion passes 19-1.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Now, is there any opposition to the consent calendar? I see none. It will go on the consent calendar. Representative Power will be writing the committee reports. Thank you. That closes the executive session on HB 78, and we'll go ahead and press on. Senate Bill 47, establishing a commission to study barriers to increase density of residential development in New Hampshire. I'd like to go ahead and introduce a amendment 2023-1677H. That was sent to everybody about a week, maybe a little more than a week ago, committee email. And do I have a second on that?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brown is the second. So I'm going to start out by saying that we were encouraged at the beginning of this session, chairs and vice chairs and individuals that stop the commissions. We have a commission to study commissions. We have, I think, north of 250 different commissions that the speaker and his assistants spend months actually staffing every time there's a new legislature in session. I don't believe they've completed at this time. Most of those commissions don't meet. A lot of times they don't do what they're supposed to, but yet they're still out there. And he has been asked us to stop with the commissions. My personal thought on this is we don't need it. We have a special committee on housing. We've got this committee. And when you look at the sponsors of the bills, the majority of them are senators. And it would almost appear that this has been sent over for us to, I'm not going to go down that road. So in the amendment, since the majority of the sponsors are senators, one of the changes that I made was the number of members of the Senate that would be on the committee. They heavily loaded it to being members of the House, and I've brought that back. They had it at a 2-6 ratio. I brought it back and said, you have it. You have 3 members and we have 5. A couple other minor changes here and there. The biggest one I want to point out was, to me, this was lacking. The original commission bill was lacking in what I would consider fiscal oversight. That's what I care about, is the fiscal side. And 2B, which starts down on line 31, talks about a lot of those. And that is the impacts that the development, including that development would be to look at school enrollment and property values. The next page, it talks about traffic, maintenance of road, public works, department staffing, increases in municipal services, fire, police, all that, trash removal, water sources. And that was lacking in the original bill, SB 47. There was also one other change down at the bottom where was it? I changed the date on when they would first have to report it. It brought it up a little closer so they would have a little bit more time afterwards to act. Honestly, without the amendment, I would vote against it only because, again, my thought process is if there's a group of individuals who want to accomplish something, you don't need a commission to do it. You've got a group of senators, or if I had a bill or something that I wanted to do, I'd gather the people that I thought could get me there and come up with the plan and put a bill forward. I'm not a fan of pawning off work on commissions and then having our poor Speaker of the House and their folks trying to staff these things, and then the meetings not being of much value in the end. So I would ask that you support the amendment. If the amendment passes, I will support it as a whole. Otherwise, I will not. So thank you. Representative Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this amendment because, as you recall, during the hearing, I did ask I believe it was the prime sponsor. I asked someone, I don't recall who, but I was trying to get to the point that part of the scope or one of the focuses of this commission was to study the impacts of development. And I asked the question, so on page 2, line 8 of the bill, one of the focuses is to study the impacts of development, and that they specifically point to school enrollments and property values. So I appreciate this amendment in that it addresses what I was trying to get at. And the answer was, I said, what other things or resources would be impacted by development that the municipality would have to, bear? And then I was pointed back, we're looking at the public water and sewer, but that's not enough. So I do appreciate, because clearly there are, as listed and enumerated here, other impacts that are going to affect the municipality and the cost to the municipality. So I will be supporting this amendment.
Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed that you left out one change that your amendment makes, which is in line 24, I believe of the second page, where it omits the section, which is section I on Conservation Commission. And I'm wondering if that was an intentional change or perhaps an error. And if it was intentional, can you explain your thinking behind excluding conservation commissions?
That was intentional. It was not unintentional. There's probably a few other things that I changed that I have not mentioned. One of them, the other one was New Hampshire Association of Regional Planning Commission in H. I left that out just personally because I don't believe that. As I said, my goal is more from the fiscal sense, my concerns, rather than from the Conservation Commission sense. So that's why I left it out. Sure.
And are there no fiscal consequences to the impact on our environment?
There may be, but in my amendment, I excluded that. Representative Priest.
I also share in the concerns that were raised by Representative Stavis on this. Okay. Very dyslexic. But anyway, back to this amendment. I agree with all that Representative Stavis has said about the need to have a person of conservation expertise on this study commission, because conservation is one of the important factors in New Hampshire. It plays a vital part in the rural communities. And it's one of the things that makes New Hampshire what it is. It's its natural beauty. And if we take the expertise out of this committee, we're kind of denying this whole fact research base that will not be included. And I think they need to be included. Also, on the areas of study, I was questioning why you didn't mention sanitary sewer, since that's going to be more and more critical, especially if you are developing at a higher density, and making sure that the municipalities have the sewer capacity, or if they even have a sewer, to handle this. Thank you.
It's there.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
It's there.
I believe that's in there, Representative Priest.
29? Line
Um,
20. Public water and sewer.
Yeah,
Line 29.
line 29, page 1. That was already in the existing bill, Representative. I didn't change that at all. Representative Brown?
Just a clarification, I'm trying to understand the environmental concerns, since on line 17, it talks about the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Services or designee. So am I missing something there during that conversation? On the amendment, it shows that appointed by the Speaker of the House.
That is correct. It is on there, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where the environmental concerns are in regard to the commission.
Representative Reed?
So, understanding that Representative Priest might want to answer that question in a second. My comment may actually be more to the underlying bill, but since the sponsor of the amendment brought this point up, I would like to respond to it, which is, of course, all of us have heard arguments against commissions and committees, and there's so many studies, and we study the studies of the studies and all of that, but I am, with my training as a molecular biologist, I am very much in favor of gathering all information. Right. And so I've never really appreciated the idea of we shouldn't study anything, really. We should study as much as we possibly can and make the most informed decisions that we can possibly make. And I don't feel like we should say sorry to any of us legislators for having to do the work that we begged our constituents to send us to go do. And even more so for a speaker, any speaker, not just our current one, who not only begs to be elected, but then also begs us to vote for him or her as speaker. So they are asking for that job. So I don't feel bad that they then have to do that work. So I think it's good to study things and be informed when we make our decisions. My issue with commissions and study committees comes in what voices are we amplifying to the exclusion of what other voices? And so I have a problem with excluding some voices and taking out some voices like the conservation voice in this scenario, because that's the real issue. Again, gathering as much information as possible, I think, is key to making the most informed decisions possible.
Thank you. Microphone, Representative Brown. Representative Treleaven, then Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to jump onto this Conservation Commission wagon from a different point. So maybe I'm bringing up the rear, or maybe I'm riding up front with the coach person. But what I want to say is, and my work as a real estate broker over the years, 35 and counting, I have seen conservation commissions come into a scenario where a building in a more urban setting that was adjacent to a wetlands, and this is just one example, there are many, needed to have the Conservation Commission look at the building and figure out with the building owner who wanted to sell the building how it could be brought to speed where we were then, whatever year it was, in regards to the regulations and to continue to protect our environment. Long story short, Conservation Commission did a great job of interfacing and interacting with the realtors involved, the owner of the property, the people who wanted to buy the property, and made very reasonable demands as to how the land had to be handled before they would give it its approval. That building is still there. It's in Portsmouth. It's on Islington Road. and it has made money for all the people who have used it, and it has protected the environment, the wetlands that are behind it, by listening to the very simple observations that those of us who aren't schooled in that might not understand. So I'm totally in favor of leaving the Conservation Commission in. I think the input's really important. And I have to say, I think it has an economic effect. This was probably 25 years ago. I think now it has even a bigger economic effect because they're not making any more water. They're not making any more soil. They're not making any more, we're not making any more rocks. What we got is what we got. Thanks.
Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just make one point to not belabor those points, although I support those points. I was contacted by a member of the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. They would like to be part of this.
Representatives Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I echo the statements that have been made by Senator Tree-Lovin. Totally. Again. And I have worked on study committees where the conservation individual professional has played a significant part in the discussion, and I think they need to be part of this discussion. Second, to the question that was raised by Representative Brown, the Department of Environmental Protection is a great organization. They have great services. Conservation is not one of their things that they do there. They protect our water resources. They help with the sewers, infrastructure and air quality, but they don't do conservation. Thank you.
Representative Yokella.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing me. This, I don't really understand how the conversation has gone this far down the road of conservation being vital to this commission, because the commission is studying the effects of density and the barriers to density. So unless conservation is a beneficiary of density because they have more open land, if you have, the property built out every 2 acres, then there's less land to conserve. It seems like there's a whole lot of discussion about what they're bringing to the discussion of this commission. There's not a lot of clarity on what they're bringing to the discussion of density and how are they the cause of a barrier towards density, or are they? I don't understand how they are advising us on what are the barriers to density, like the commission. Can someone that's in favor of that clarify how they affect density, which is the study of this commission? Thank you.
I'm going to recognize Representative Majori next. Maybe he can address that in his comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure that I will, but I'll speak relative to what my Conservation Commission does in Northampton, where what they're looking at is the value of land. And if we're talking about the density of a piece of property, not only to talk about the value of land among many other things, they also talk about easements which allow people to access that land. So if we're talking about density, how do we get to a valuable piece of land? Conservation Commission is one of the first places that the planning board will go for advice on that. And when you have a community, again, like Northampton, which is a third in conservation, but we do have the rights to have conservation subdivisions, we really look at that interplay between the value of the land, the access to that land, and how much can you build upon that land. The Conservation Commission is intimately involved in all of those aspects. So I think it's a crucial piece of this. I'm not sure that I've answered your question, but it's a reason why I would really urge this commission to include conservation. Thank you.
Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To that point about how density and conservation works, if you have open space planning, which we do in Exeter, you can have more dense, or you can work out a compromise with the planning board to have a more dense development if you put some of the land into conservation that backs up with another place that has conservation that already got density bonus. So that's how Exeter ended up having 30% of our land in conservation. So there is a bonus factor, and I think that the conservation should be represented because people don't know that. People in the other groups are not planners. Some are. So I would vote against this amendment for taking that out because there's a reason for the offset between, and it would drive, if you want to keep land, it's driving in Exeter density within our downtown because we can't expand into those areas that have been put into conservation. So I think that needs to be explained and it has to have input on the committee. Thank you.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And not to belabor this, but for those of us who live in cities that are already pretty dense, the Conservation Commission is absolutely vital to guide conversations of where one can safely build without impinging on wetlands, impinging on important wildlife corridors. And conservation commissions are an integral part of every municipality's master plan. So you can't really get into a conversation about where are we going to go with regard to density, increasing density in housing, without including the vital players in the master planning process. So that's one aspect of why the Conservation Commission representation is important. And I have a question for the chair, if he will allow me, which is if the point of the amendment is, or the point the amendment seeks to make, is that there are already too many commissions studying too many things, why doesn't the amendment eliminate the commission altogether?
I would be more than happy to answer that. And again, it was my desire would be to eliminate the commission and not even begin the commission to begin with. Sometimes we do things to try to get along, if you would, and this would be, my amendment is an attempt to make things get along a little bit better. Like I said, I have no problem if this amendment fails of making, we will make an ITL motion on the whole bill if we need to, and then we'll go to the floor with that. So as I said, with this amendment, I'm more than happy to vote for it, mainly because it includes the fiscal issues that are my issues. If we're gonna vote this down just because of a conservation commission, like I say, I'm more than happy to do an ITL on it. Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really know how this works, so I'll ask the question. It seems that many of us are stuck on the Conservation Commission elimination from, in the amendment. If the sponsor were willing to add that back in and we could pass the amendment, how does that work?
That would require an amendment to the amendment, which we're probably not going to have a whole lot of time for. The other option would be a motion of retain, or we could also make a motion to recess this particular executive session to a future date, which will probably be happening anyway on another bill that we're going to be discussing soon. Those would be the options.
Follow up.
Representative Hicks.
Thank you. So if you would be willing to accept that motion, I would make the motion to recess.
No. The motion for recess would have to come from me. Let me think about that motion to recess. Further comments? Yeah, we got some more down there. Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to go back and directly address Representative Yokella's question/comment. And I think I understood where he was coming from in the angle when he was talking about the conservation commissions and the idea that conservation benefits from increased density. I think what you were trying to say is we increase conservation to the extent that we concentrate population, so increasing density in already dense areas rather than non-dense areas. But increased density for the most part requires increasing density in non-dense areas, and that's where we run into issues where conservation really is a barrier to increased density because, for example, current use requires 10 acres. So you can't 7? Does it change? I apologize. I'm not a member of this committee. Thank you. But also from a general conservation standpoint, people who are interested in wildlife conservation, something I do know about, the idea, the principle is to have as large areas of conservation as possible for wildlife populations. It's more beneficial to have, if you have the same number of acres, it's more beneficial to have all of that contiguous rather than separated into smaller parcels. So because that is a basic conservation principle, conservation does actually present a barrier to increased density. I greatly appreciate the correction, Representative. No, I appreciate it.
Further comments? So Representative Hicks, this was my thought. We do have to have disposition of this particular amendment. If it were to pass, an amendment could be made and this exec session could be recessed to a future date. I just went to check to see which day room is going to be available. We will be coming back either the 17th or the 24th, briefly, hopefully. So if this were to pass and I call the recess, somebody would be able to make that amendment to the amendment. I will leave it there. Further comments? Representative Priest?
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification. Would it also be possible for you to withdraw your motion on the amendment and then make the motion to retain this bill to a future date to correct the amendment and add the conservation?
I could. I'm not going to withdraw the motion. We can, and it wouldn't be a retain. I mean, we can retain this. Retain is a much longer rather than recess. I'm just talking, if we recess this particular executive session, we can do it to a specific date, either next week or the week after is what I'm getting at.
A follow-up. At that time, if the amendment does pass without the language, never mind. Thank you.
Further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to call a roll on this amendment.
SB 47, Amendment 2023-16778H. Vice Chairman Power.
Yes.
Representative Guthrie. Clerk votes yes. Representative Lascelles.
Yes.
Representative Keller.
Yes.
Representative Kelly.
Yes.
Representative Arwood.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Cahill.
Yes.
Representative Davis.
No.
Representative Tetro.
No.
Representative Trey Levin.
No.
Representative Gilman.
No.
Representative Majori.
No.
Representative Tersky.
No.
Representative Gallagher.
No.
Representative Hicks.
No.
Representative Reed.
No.
Representative Priest.
No.
And Chairman Turcott, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, it's a tie 10
Promotion, Representative Tatro.
10 to 10.
Representative Power, you have a motion?
I actually had a question. What are the options at this point?
Options are OTP, ITL, retain. Representative Davis.
I make a motion about to pass.
Do we have a second? Representative Prick?
Davis, David Priest.
Do we have comments on the OTP? Representative Yokella.
Thank you. If the OTP passed, and in between now and the the floor, an amendment very similar to the amendment that we just did not pass, very closely, that might have been more supported by this committee, could be offered as a floor amendment on the floor and achieve that same goal as the recessing to a future date. Is my understanding of that correct?
I believe you're correct. If we recess to a later date, it could be done within committee. If it passes OTP, it will go to the floor, and then a floor amendment would be needed, is my understanding. Representative Brown?
Mr. Chairman, what's the barrier to recessing this to a later date now?
There's no motion.
You have to,
Is it only you that can do that?
could you state the question again, Representative Brown?
What's the barrier to just recessing this to a later date for our committee?
There is none, except we have a motion on the floor right
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Ask a question.
Representative Treleaven?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to what Representative Brown just asked, it would be my understanding, it was my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that had we passed this amendment, we could recess the entire kit and caboodle, come back and amend it again, just in committee under recess. We didn't pass the amendment, so we're done with the amendment as it stands, as far as I can see, although I could be wrong.
No, you're correct.
Thank you.
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless it's brought up, Representative Yokella was talking about bringing it up as a floor amendment.
No, I understand that, and I thought, oh, excuse me.
Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? Representative Hicks?
Yes, quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do actually agree with you in principle on the number of commissions and really the responsibility of us who are legislators to get together for things that we are passionate about. I think that is a better approach than forcing people to sit on commissions. That being said, I believe this is something that has existed previously. And so I don't have a problem supporting this because of the issues and because it has existed previously, but I am fully in support of reducing the number of commissions that we have.
Representative Reed?
Thank you. Just to tack on to the procedural conversation. So even though we did not pass this amendment that we were just discussing, if the chair chose to recess, it's not a motion, it's just something a chair can do. You all would have time to get a new amendment together that might be a compromise amendment amongst leadership, for example. So it still, I think, would behoove the committee to do that. And perhaps if the chair was willing, the motion could be withdrawn.
Well, to do what you suggested, Representative Reed, it would require the motion to be withdrawn. Otherwise, we have to dispose of the current motion. Representative Hicks?
One more comment. Other than the elimination of the Conservation Commission, I think that the amendment was a better amendment. The reason I didn't vote for it was because of that. So I actually like the amendment with the conservation better than the current bill. Just to bring that point up.
Thank you, Representative Davis.
I'd like to thank Representative Hicks for that comment, and I feel exactly the same way, and would be willing to think about this carefully. If the chair was willing to compromise on the Conservation Commission, I might be willing to amend my motion or withdraw my motion, depending on how we can work that out procedurally.
It would require you to withdraw your motion and whoever seconded it. And I believe we could work out what Representative Hicks is suggesting. Representative Davis.
Then I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Priest.
I will also withdraw my second, but I do have a question, a procedural question. If we make a motion to recess this bill to a later date, I'm sorry.
It's not a motion. It's something I can just call.
You can just call yourself.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
So, with that in mind, everybody hold off for 2 minutes.
Let's take lunch. And then come back.
All right, so Jamie is not here, so I can't, I need to clarify which day. So she's coming right back? Okay, so let's just talk for a few minutes. And Representative Davis?
So I'm going to take this opportunity to just say how much, very much I appreciate being on this particular committee, and have been on this committee for going on 5 years now. How much I appreciate the chair and the vice chair and all of the leadership and members for the work we do to achieve what is largely a bipartisan consensus on most of the issues that confront us. And I'm very grateful for all of that. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Representative Reed?
I would like to take this moment to apologize to the deputy ranking member for repeatedly mispronouncing his name these many years since he was first elected, pronouncing it with indeed 4 syllables instead of 3, and substituting on this committee has taught me the error of my ways.
Representative Reed, I believe you were actually correct. It's Maggiore.
Maggiore.
It's not
I
Maggiore.
have
it's
indeed, Mr. Chair,
Maggiore.
been saying Maggiore these many years.
I'll be there next week. I'll find out.
You'll find out.
Representative.
Thank you.
I'm gonna-
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, while we're chatting and hearing about a vacation in Italy, softball, he says, ha ha ha. I won't be here from the 16th through the 23rd, just to let y'all know. So someone will need to substitute me. I'll try to recruit someone who lives up to Representative Powers and Representative Davis's standards, because they are good, high standards. And I wish you all the best. I'll bring you back some sunshine from Disneyland. A what? Uphold. Uphold.
Okay, so, the executive session on, SB 47 will be recessed till 10 a.m. on the 24th of May. Okay? So, I'm not going to hammer it down because that's just in recess. We have one bill left, so here's the options. I'm going to see us show of hands what we want to do. This is going to be today. This is going to be another bill that I will recess until that same day. So we're going to have two bills to go over. I think we're going to have a lot of discussion on this one. I'd prefer to see that discussion as much as we can do today. I know there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, at least from our side. There's issues with the bill that we want to clean up if it's to go forward. So not sure how long the discussion on that is going to take. So the question is, do you want to break for lunch now, or do you want to push through on this last bill and then call it a day? Is there anybody who wants to break for lunch right now? I see three hands. Representative Davis.
What are we trying to accomplish in having the conversation today as opposed to when we recess to?
Because I think there's going to be a lot of discussion regardless of what the bill ends up looking like, if there's an amendment or whatever. I think it's a very bill with potential conflict, so I'd like to get as much of that out of the way as we can today, at least get everybody's opinion on it. If you'd prefer to just do it all at once next time, we can also do that. But I'd prefer. Am I seeing people want to do it all at once rather than today?
I would prefer that.
Yeah.
You would? Okay, well, we can do that. So I am not going to open up. Deborah.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm not sure, but it seems to me that I'd like to see a consensus of how many members have actually reviewed the salient sections of Title VIII of the U.S. Code relative to this bill. Because if you don't know what it says, then discussion's going to fall flat on its face.
So what we will do, based on the comments, I'm going to ask, before I recess it, I'm going to ask Deborah, because she's been doing an extremely large amount of work and research on this. We'll have 2 weeks before we come back and actually exec the bill. We will exec it unless somebody decides they want to retain it, but I do plan on execing these last two bills on the 24th. So at that, whatever information, Deborah, that you have on that, that anybody else has, use the next 2 weeks wisely. I would have preferred to actually got some discussion going today, but if the will of the group is do it all at once, we can do it that way also. So, Representative Priest.
And I would also encourage any of the members on this committee, if they have amendments, to share it with the members prior to the meeting, so we're prepared to talk about them and to deal with it at that time.
I would agree. And I think, Representative Priest, at least the three amendments I was involved with, you had in your hands over a week ago. I sent to the entire committee. If you didn't receive them, it's because you've given us a bad email address, but I sent those off at least a week ago. So I try to do that, Representative Priest, because there's nothing worse than I hate than getting an amendment the day before. On SB 222, OLS didn't complete that simple one line that I sent them until yesterday afternoon when I landed from Rome, and I immediately sent it out to everybody as soon as I got it. So I attempt to do that, and I would ask everybody to do that as soon as you have the amendment. Also, if don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait a weekend, 6 days from now to start doing the research or whatever. I'd ask, again, Deborah, to get your research out, maybe send it to me or Diane, and then we can float it out to everybody in the committee. Representative Brown.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible for the minority and majority side to discuss what their major concerns with the bill are before we recess? Just an overview maybe of what the issues are, so that as I research this, I can be more thoughtful in my approach to the information that I'm researching, to understand a little bit better view, to be more open to maybe some of the concerns.
That was the point of my statement before, was whether or not we wanted to begin a discussion today or do it all at once later. I'm ambivalent. I would prefer to have it out, start now, but it appears the majority would rather wait and do it all at once. Representative Cahill.
Is there anything stopping Representative Brown from meeting with his colleagues over lunch and talking?
There is not. Similar to the need for commissions, where people should be able to get together and organize what they wish to do, rather than say, hey, you go and do all the research on this commission. Yes, you can do that. It's a very good point, Representative Cahill. Representative Maggiore.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Hey.
I didn't know you were first. I'm
Hey.
sorry.
Representative Maggiore.
I yield the floor.
I love him desperately. yes.
Representative Trelevin.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair. My current status has made me realize that we are all human beings made of flesh and blood. Maybe I should write a song about that. We've been here since 10:30 doing our work, and candidly, I, for one, am cooked. I'd be happy to have lunch with you and talk about it, maybe even another day, but I prefer not to stay here in committee and force you all for however long to talk more right now. I yield to my humanity and to my colleague from Italy.
Okay, we're just going round and round now on what we're going to do. So, Representative Elward, I'll give you the last word. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give you an idea, in trying to address some of the concerns in opposition testimony and things I was seeing that just didn't seem right, you literally have to sit down with the 3 sections of Title 8, which are 1373, 1357, and 1226. And you have to look at the bill side by side and try to make sense of what the bill is trying to do versus what federal law says. And then go to the objections that were raised, especially that of the bill forcing or coercing or requiring local law enforcement and state law enforcement to enforce immigration detainers. I spent 40 hours looking for where that is in federal law, and I can't find it. So if you familiarize yourself with those sections that specifically say federal, state, or local law enforcement, in those 3 sections, isolate them, understand them as they relate to the bill, we'll have a fantastic discussion.
thank you, Representative Elward. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, in a brief 1-page summary, outline all the issues that you believe we need addressing. I know you have been talking with the sponsors about a potential amendment. If that comes to pass, that's fine also, but please send what you believe we should all be looking at to Diane, Representative Power, sorry, and we will get that out to the entire committee, okay? So with that, I will recess SB 132 till May 24th at 10 a.m. also. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we will see everybody on the 24th. Representative Hicks. after, could you come and discuss? Thank you. All right, we'll see everybody on the 24th.
Freaking light lights, freaking light lights.